let's talk about light and how various kinds of light will affect your iPhone photos. But before we even begin and before we get into all the detail, it's so important that you understand that light is absolutely critical to every photo you take with your iPhone. In fact, it is so important that you could literally be the best photographer in the world. You could go to the best location ever, but if the light isn't right, you will not walk away with amazing shots. It is that big of a deal. And that's why it's so important that you take time to study light, to understand light, to observe light, and that you know what kind of light will work best for what kind of photos. Now, the first characteristic of light that I'd like to talk about is probably the simplest one, and that's the amount of light. As a photographer, you're working with the light you have in the scene, and the more light you have available, the easier it will be for your iPhone to take a high-quality photo. When you're taking photos with the iPhone, generally speaking, you want to be shooting when there's more light. That's because the sensor that reads the light inside the camera is absolutely tiny, and that tiny sensor can only capture so much light. So if you have more light in the scene, your iPhone will be able to take higher quality photos. So what affects how much light you have in the scene? Well, the biggest thing is whether you're inside, indoors, or outside. And if you're indoors, generally speaking, there's going to be much less light than outdoors. Most rooms have only a moderate amount of light, while outside, especially during the day, there's just so much more light. So if you have the choice to be shooting inside or outside, generally speaking, you'll get much better results outside, just because there's so much more light to work with. The time of the day will also play a role, and in the middle of the day, there's a lot more light than in the evening. So in the golden hour, there's already less light, and as you get into the blue hour, which is after sunset, there's less and less light, until eventually at night, there's almost no light left to work with. And finally, you're going to have more light on a sunny day than a cloudy day. But even a cloudy day, if you go outside, there will be plenty of light. You don't have to worry about not having enough light on a cloudy day. So as long as you go outside during the day, you're going to have more than enough light to take high quality photos with your iPhone. But now, let's move on to the second characteristic of light, and that is whether you have hard or soft light. So hard light is the kind of light you get on a sunny day, especially in the middle of the day. That's when you have really strong, really harsh shadows, and you have a clear line between shadow and the parts of the scene that are illuminated. So if you see clear shadows, and if there's a clear, harsh line that determines the line between the shadow and the parts that are in the sun, that's when you're working with hard light. You'll get hard light whenever you have one small light source that's also relatively far away. So the sun is a perfect example of this. It is small, at least from our point of view, because it only takes up a tiny space in the sky when we look up. It's far away, and that is also the only significant light source on a sunny day. So it meets all the characteristics for hard light. Now, this type of light can be good because it creates saturated colors, really bright colors, and it also has a lot of contrast. But what's not so good about this light is that you get those hard shadows everywhere. So if you're trying to take portrait photos, for example, they're not going to work well in harsh sunlight because there will be all these shadows on the face of your subject. Similarly, if you're taking photos in the forest, you're going to have a lot of really bright spots, so bright highlights. It's called dappled light, and essentially it means that in the forest, where most of the forest is dark, you'll have those bright spots scattered around everywhere, and that's going to create really messy photos. So generally speaking, harsh light isn't the right kind of light for these types of photos. So what can you shoot in hard light on a sunny day in the middle of the day? One of my favorites is to go to the city and to look for these shafts of light or these pockets of light, especially towards the afternoon. So I'm talking about areas in the city that are nicely illuminated by bright sunlight, and then the surroundings are darker. If you find that kind of spot, those are perfect for street photography. They draw so much attention towards your main subject, and is the kind of thing you can only find when the light is harsh. Now, another thing to be careful with in hard light is shooting towards the sun. So if you're taking a photo of something, let's say a building, and if the sun is actually behind that building, then the part of the building that's facing you is going to be in the shadow. It's going to be backlit, and that doesn't really work so well. You're either going to get washed out colors, or your subject is going to be dark, or the exposure isn't going to look right. And in general, that's just a really difficult setup to shoot in. So if possible, you'd want that midday sun either behind you or ideally not there at all. So generally speaking, hard light is difficult light to work with. So a lot of times photographers will either wait for the evening for that golden hour, or they just won't be taking photos at all in the middle of the day. Okay, so far we've covered hard light, and the opposite of that is called soft light. That's what you get on a cloudy day. The reason you get soft light on a cloudy day is because all the clouds in the sky essentially become a light source. So all those white clouds, there's light coming out from all of them. And to you on the ground, essentially that means that there's light coming in from the top from every possible direction. And that's why when there's soft light on a cloudy day, you don't see your shadow at all. There are just no shadows. Soft light can be really good for some specific photography situations. For example, when you're doing portraits, that soft light is just perfect. Same is true for close-ups, macro, when you're taking photos inside of a forest, or if you're working with a small river or a waterfall. Those are all the kind of situations where soft light works really well. However, a cloudy day generally doesn't look that great for landscape photography. That's because all those colors and everything that makes the landscape beautiful is just not going to be there on a cloudy day. And you're going to get shots that for the most part will just look gray. There won't be much contrast, there won't be much color, and you're just going to get these dull, plain shots that aren't going to look that great. So there are specific situations where soft light is exactly what you need, but then there are also many other types of photos that just aren't going to look that special on a cloudy day. Now, so far we've covered hard light and soft light, and I've told you that it's kind of difficult to take photos in both. So what's happening? When do you actually take photos? Well, that's where the angle of light comes in. That's the next topic we need to talk about. Now, on a cloudy day, the light is coming from every possible angle, so we can't really talk about the angle from which the light is coming. But on a sunny day, all the light comes from the sun, and depending on the time of the day, the angle from which that light is coming can be very different. For example, in the middle of the day, the sun is going to be really high in the sky. So at that angle, essentially you're going to be illuminated from the top and you'll have a short shadow. Later in the afternoon and towards the evening, the angle of that sun is going to change. So the sun is going to start to get lower in the sky, and as that happens, you're going to get longer shadows and the light is also going to become softer. And the peak of that time of the day, when all of this is happening, is called the golden hour. So the golden hour is typically the last hour of the day before the sunset, or the first hour of the day after the sunrise. And that is the best time of the day for taking photos. So what makes golden hour so special? Why is it the best time of the day for taking photos? Well, there are many reasons for that. First of all, it's the angle of the sun itself. So in the golden hour, the sun is shining at a lower angle, so it's closer to the horizon. That means you're getting longer shadows. You have the ability to create beautiful silhouette photos. The clouds in the sky start to light up. And also, that beautiful sun that you get in the golden hour, it has this really nice warm tone to it. It's just a really beautiful light to work with, and that's why it works so well for so many different kinds of photos. Now, one thing you should know about the golden hour is that it's not exactly an hour. In fact, it can be much longer or shorter depending on where in the world you are. So if you're at a higher latitude, for example in the northern hemisphere, you're going to get a longer golden hour. Also, if you're at a higher latitude, in winter, perhaps the entire day could be golden hour. Locations such as Iceland are famous for this. The sun is at a low angle for the entire day, and because of that, the entire day is a great photo opportunity. That's the power of golden hour. Now, no discussion of the golden hour would be complete without actually mentioning the peak of the golden hour, which is the sunset or the sunrise if you're shooting in the morning. So that is a really special time of the day. That's when the sun is at the lowest angle possible. It's just above the horizon, and you get this really special, really orange light. It's not just a little bit warm, it's really bright orange even. And also, it's not as harsh. So when you're closer to the sunset, that light that's coming from the setting sun, that is actually soft light, or it's much, much softer than the kind of light you'd get from the sun in the middle of the day. So even though you could be directly illuminating your subject with the setting sun, you're still gonna get soft, pleasant light, and that's one of the benefits of shooting during this time of the day. Now, if you plan to shoot a sunrise or a sunset, it definitely helps if you're in a large open space. For example, you can be on the beach, or you can be in a big field, on top of a hill or a mountain, but you want the kind of place where you can see far. Because if you're in a crowded location, or if there's just too much stuff around you, you're not gonna see that setting sun, and you won't have that special light. And of course, if you're planning for a sunrise shoot, you wanna make sure that your location and your photo works well facing east. So you want a lot of empty space facing east. Whereas if you're preparing for a sunset shot, then you'd want empty space in front of you as you're facing west. So you want to make sure that whatever location you pick for this time of the day, that you'll actually see the sunset or that you'll see the sunrise. Otherwise, you're not going to get that special light that we can only find at this time of the day. And finally, we've come to the blue hour. The blue hour is what happens shortly after sunset or shortly before sunrise. Again, it's not always going to be an hour, but the further north you go in the northern hemisphere, then the longer that blue hour gets. So if you're really far north in the north of Scandinavia, that blue hour could potentially be the entire night. During the blue hour, all the light comes from the sky, and the sky isn't completely dark yet. So there's no sun, just the blue sky, and the light that this blue sky emits is also blue, and that's why this time of the day is called the blue hour. Generally speaking, it's a difficult time for doing iPhone photography because there just isn't that much light, so most scenes or most situations wouldn't work so well in the blue hour. However, you can definitely take shots if you're in a large open space, especially if sky is going to be a significant part of your image. If that's the case, then blue hour can be a really great time to take interesting photos. Another thing that works really well in the blue hour is taking photos of illuminated subjects. These could be famous landmarks or buildings or just the city in general. But what happens during the blue hour is that all the lights come on, and those lights are almost always really warm, so they have this beautiful yellowish glow to them. And then, in addition to that artificial yellow, you have the blue coming from the sky. So during the blue hour, you can get these really interesting photos where your subjects are beautifully illuminated with artificial light that's warm and yellow, and then everything surrounding that scene is going to be dark blue. Those are the kind of photos that you'd ideally be taking during the blue hour. Okay, so now you know all the essential theory of light. You know how the light changes throughout the day and how that's going to affect your iPhone photos. So in the coming videos, we'll take an in-depth look at specific types of light and what kind of shots you can create given the lighting conditions. But from this point forward, it's really, really important that you're always thinking about the light when you're taking photos. If the light isn't right, you're not going to get the shots you need. But if the lighting conditions are perfect, even an average location is going to look absolutely stunning. I guarantee that to you. So it's really, really, really important that you're always thinking about light, that you're always thinking about how you're using the light that's available in your photos, and whether the kind of photos you're taking have the right kind of light for them. That is absolutely critical, and the right kind of light will make or break your iPhone photos. This video was a free preview of my iPhone Photo Academy online course. In this course, you'll discover everything you need to know to take stunning photos with your iPhone. So if you'd like to take the kind of photos that will leave your friends and family speechless, please take a look at the full version of iPhone Photo Academy. You'll find a link in the description right next to this video, so click on that link right now, and I'll see you inside the full version of the course.